I was a gamer. I think it's still like, and it all started when I was around 3 years old playing Super Mario, Contra, Battle City, and then when I turned 6, my brother got us a PS1, and while he played Street Fighter EX2 and other fighter games, I found a disc with a picture that shows 5 dudes riding what seems to be oversized chickens. So I booted up the disc and out came my first Final Fantasy game, Tactics. But that will be a story for another time. And whose story is that? Well, mine, and my name is Biotrex, a Twitch streamer, a guitar shredder, a longtime monster hunter, and the wielder of bone sticks with meaty tips. Thanks to also my supporters on Twitch, main YouTube channel, and Patreon, as it helps me and helps get the content going. And if you want to be a part of it, then you can do so for as low as $1 a month. And as much as I love to speak highly about Final Fantasy Tactics, that isn't the game we'll be covering today. Instead, we'll be covering the 2 games that parented the child that would later be Final Fantasy Tactics, and those games are Ogre Battle and Tactics Ogre. Now, for those who don't know about Ogre Battle and Tactics Ogre, these games were made by Quest Corporation under the director Yasumi Matsuno, who would later leave the company to join Square Enix, known as Square at the time, to direct the creation of Vagrant Story and Final Fantasy Tactics. Now, I've never played any Tactics Ogre games, but I have a few tactical RPGs under my belt, like Robot Wars, Advance Wars, Bahamut Lagoon, Feta, and more. And with that being said, the Ogre games have always been in my bucket list since then, and I intend to experience those games for the first time, starting with Ogre Battle, The March of the Black Queen. And once we start the game, a guy named Warren then introduces himself and says that he's a great seer who can read the stars. He then asks for our name, which I quickly forgotten because of Angel Ass. I didn't give him my name, and for some unknown reason, Warren here wants us to tell him about sex, which is impossible to get as a man in 2025 because you need to be as tall as Mount Everest. Minimum. And he wants to play tarot cards and wants us to tell him what we see. So the cards he shows are thighs, which I chose moral because this card is giving me immoral thoughts. Beautiful girl, because beautiful girl. Filled to the brim because this card is making me thirsty. Shrug your shoulders because this guy can't. Deceiving, because the priestess tells nothing but the truth. Right? And family. And why is the guy from Chrono Trigger naked? Does he want to shag me? Are you a With all jokes aside, once we chose all the options, Warren then asked us to choose a random card. And the card that we got was a star card. And then proceeds to not tell us what it does. We were then led to the map menu screen, and in there are the settings, the save load page, and the unit editor page, which allow us to check our units, which features yours truly, 3 fighters and a furry. Other than that, it shows the stats, the equipped items, the preferred attacks, and the class, which you could change right here, as well as the option to unfurry Slater. Maybe. And we can change the formation of our troops and the leader, but we can't do that as of yet because we're still in the tutorial. We then return to the map, and I noticed something. Why does it have faces? However, it really goes to show that all these things are to be the earlier stages of setting up, formations, and preparations that we later see in Final Fantasy Tactics. Part 1. We then clicked on the only available thing to click, which then brought us to this overworld-like area. I then clicked on my unit, checked this thing, which I didn't know what anything means, selected the unit icon, and chose to move to the closest house. And nothing happened, aside from it going from daytime to almost nighttime. Why is there a con? We then went straight for that, and out comes Warren, and this is his castle, and said that we must do battle with the evil forces of the xenophobic empire. Are we fighting Space Marines? Oh, Xenobian. Damn it, I was hoping to see Sanguinian. Other than that, he has tried to convince others to join in this fight, but apparently no one believes him. If only he uses Twitter in 2025. And the first test he gives us to see if we're fit to be the leader is to liberate all towns and temples, which I then had our unit travel to this building, which happens to be a town called Dascania, which is Ian Axad in reverse. We then liberated said town, and the game asked us if we want to pull a card, which I selected yes. And why are you booing me? I need to satiate my Magic Gathering addiction! And the card we pulled happens to be the Fortune card, which shows the guy from Trials of Mana being naked. Why is he though? Does he also want to shag me? I then kept the card and was informed that our reputation went down, and after doing so, we were told that by liberating towns and temples, we can gather information and more tarot cards. We then went back to the other place, which happens to be the Russian temple. It then gets liberated, pulled a card, crowd encourages my card addiction, and pulled up the Thighs card. We kept it, which then increases our max HP. An embassy that informs us that everything is in real time, and to avoid making hasty decisions, we can pause the game and command our units while doing so. Besides that, we can also use the tarot cards in said menu, which I totally ignored at the time. And after returning to Warren, he then tells us to find a hidden city, which happens to be on the northeastern side of this map, which we then traveled there. And while traveling, we then found out that we can cross mountains in shallow water. Sweet. Projection? Well, I don't know what that means, but we got the monies. While we're passing by the town, another person then tells us that when our characters are wounded, we can recover by going to towns and temples, but if any character is slain in battle, we can go to the temples in order to revive them. On top of that, there are 22 total cards in this game, but we can only hold 14 at a time. Once we reach our destination, the walled city then reveals itself. Hope the tenants don't find this place. We then liberate it and pull the card, which happens to be the naked Chrono Trigger guy. A knight named Sir Lance then introduces himself to us and says that he likes to look in my eyes. Why are men into me? Why are there naked men in cards? I'm a straight man! Sir Lance then swore his allegiance to us and swore to fight alongside us against the Cenobian army in hopes to see true peace return to this land. We then return to Warren, which he then challenges us to a fight, and right before the fight happens, another person then tells us that we can change the commands in combat by pressing the A button. However, behold, combat. Like, while this does look cool, it's also funny. Like, why can't they make Warren look more intimidating? He looks like a frail old man. He looks so weak that it makes Deckard Cain look like Arnold. And after being this old man up, he then joins us and gives us Volzak, his castle, to be liberated. $4,025 Gots? Well, I'm not complaining, I need more Lulus in my life. And when we checked our units, oh my god, there's a whole lot of them. Like, I knew we were getting some reinforcements, but not this much. Obviously, there's the ones with Warren and Lance as their leaders, but then this gave me a lot of confidence. But that's all going to change in Sharom. Part 2. The Ral... We started with the map showing us the location of the boss, and then I had the main unit go to a nearby town called Valna. Pulled a card that shows a big man that is so sweaty that he might make Vince McMahon lose it, which then activates more information that happens to be about shops, and that we can purchase items that heal, cure, revive, and more, and that we can use outside of battle. I don't know what got to me, but I somehow purchased 2 summons, which I still don't know what it does. Maybe it'll summon more God Gulf. And after purchasing said summons, I then realized that there are enemies on the way. And then after having the main unit fight off and win a few battles, I was left with a character with low HP. So naturally, I would go back to a nearby town in order to heal up, which then left the main base unprotected, and therefore causing this to happen. Like, I'm sorry, it just looks so funny and just so anticlimactic. Like, you could try to have at least some animation going on, but nope, it just fades to black and just boots you out. And when I went back to Sharom, I immediately noticed that Valna is still ours, which is good, because it led me to go to the other nearby village called Abdenia, which we then liberated, pulled and kept the edgy card, and then was informed that the best way to beat an enemy unit is to wipe them out. However, if that's not possible, then the side that does the most damage will be declared as the victor. After that, I commanded the unit to travel to a nearby temple, only to be interrupted by a random encounter, which happens to be a and instead of going full murder mode, I noticed that there's an option to befriend him, so I tried it, And it worked! Why is he sliding? Is he that lubed up that he doesn't need to walk anymore? And once we got to said temple, it then gets liberated, pulled a beautiful girl card, and the monks then informed us that 80 years ago, the Zenobian army was built upon peace brought by the Russian temples. Well, ain't looking good now. And look! I finally figured out how to deploy more units! I pressed the X button by accident, which brings the menu that allows you to deploy units, use items, check cards, edit units, check projections and options, and it's pretty good. I found out about this earlier. So I deployed pretty much every unit over time and had some of them stand guard on places I already liberated, and when I had the main unit to try to fight more units and push forward, this happened. After coming back for the second time, I then got enough units to push forward, which then led to me bringing Lance to the boss's castle. The boss, Usar, then comes out and speaks how he's surprised that Lance is still alive, but he intends to have him follow King Gran, whom Lance swore to avenge, which then led to the scene's boss fight. And just like that, we were victorious. Stonks. Part 3. And at this point, I pretty much got the hang of how the gameplay works. You go to towns and temples to liberate them, pull some cards, gain or lose some stats or reputation, buy some items, deploy units, have some stand guard, have some push forward, have some retreat and recover, while also making sure your main guy stays alive. And the combat works like this. If you can't wipe the enemy unit, whether you've won or lost a damage check, whichever unit that loses will then be pushed a bit further back. And if the unit is yours, then you still have a chance to move them around and recover. And my preferred style is to always have backup behind the unit that is going to do battle. That way, I can make sure that the unit stays alive and recover to a nearby town while they get replaced by the backup and vice versa. As for the projections, it basically means the money you collect from the towns, the villages, and the temples you liberated. So in a way, you became the IRS, which can stand for I, Revenue Stealer. And yes, I know this is not really how we know tactical RPGs to be, and rather the game is leaning towards the real-time strategy type with some RPG elements, but this is fun. This is actually pretty cool. And funny enough, it actually reminds me of playing Warhammer 40k. Now, a few complaints of mine would be when there's multiple of your units in one spot and there happens to be no name shown on them. Like, how could you tell which unit is which other than memorizing the icons? Like, can't we just have the unit leader names on the corner of the screen? Another one would be the item and card descriptions. Like, why can't they just show the description right on the screen instead of trying to find out what they do by using them or clicking one tarot card at a time to check the full details? And speaking of cards, some of them increases your stats, some of them decreases the enemy's stats, some of them cause damage, cause your enemies to move positions or be removed from the fight outright, and again, it doesn't show what each card does in the fight. Yes, I'm aware that some games don't do that, like Final Fantasy 1 spell names, but the names of those spells are very simple and straightforward, like Fire does fire damage, Cure heals damage, but if you're only going to use card names in this game, then we really don't know what they do unless we memorize it or note the details down on a piece of paper. Like, what do you think this card does? Give you Goth? Blinds the enemy? Nope, it does lightning damage. What about this one? Gives you thighs? I wish, because it does cold damage. Now for this scene, I pretty much just tried to divide and conquer, and while we did lose some characters, we didn't actually lose any units and ended up getting revived instead. A lot of enemies tried to pressure and flank, but in the end, I was able to get rid of them, which then cleared the way to the boss's castle. And right before entering it, I then purchased some more healing items and some jokers, which is essentially a booster pack that allows you to draw a random card. And once I felt ready, I then brought a unit to the boss's castle, which the boss then reveals that he also hates the Empire just like us, but had to give up in order to protect his people and Sharom. Brother, did you actually sold out? Is that why you don't have armor? Because you sold it to the Empire! And this boss was rough, and even though he didn't kill any of my units, he was able to repel them due to dealing more damage, which left me no choice but to use my main unit. And the character models. Yes, some of them look cool, some of them look silly, but you can't say that they don't have their own charm. Like, look at the faces of some of these models. Another thing I will add is that this game is big, so expect save states to be used. Part 4. The boss is a furry. Part 5. The boss is an edgy old man. One thing I will add is that sometimes you will deal with undead units, and no matter what, your unit's attacks will not go through unless you use damage card spells or have a heal in the unit to cast its healing spell onto them, as we can see in Part 5. Part 6. The boss is how you doing? Part 7. Days Long Gone. Thanks for reminding me of a depression game, you motherfucker. And while this map was quite rough and abuses its flying units, it is quite the fun one, as it has you travel to certain towns to recruit specific characters, to have you talk to specific NPCs for a specific item, which has you find specific hidden temple, which then you use said item to bring down the walls that was blocking the specific castle. Hence why I said this map abuses specific flying units. Won't you listen? But right before we went to the boss's castle, I went to this little place which also had walls that was guarding it, but it eventually broke down. And the reason why is because this place was a prison that was holding Ash, King Grant's former royal guard, after being accused and framed for assassinating the king. We didn't free him, but he then joins our army and swore to avenge him. And by the way, the boss is just a dude. Part 8. The Black Kite. And the boss happens to be the guy that disguises Ash in order to assassinate the king. Part 9. The Christmas, which has the boss that happens to be the wife of dude and doesn't even know that he sims for the Empress. Part 10.
Winter is coming.
Which has a boss that's a generic blonde dude with 2 baby fatalises. You see, that was a Monster reference. Check out my main channel for Monster content. Part 11. I know it says scene, but I'm too committed to change. Which has a boss named Omicron that has black guards guarding him. What else did you think they do? Part 12. Wet Wipes, which the boss is a high angel who said heaven is cringe. Why? Sure, she could sim for a random old man. Part 13. Which has a boss that happens to be Agrias. Again, Part 14. Eminem Pure, which has a boss fight that featured twins. I don't know what else to add. Part 15. The Sin of Ass. And I think the boss watched too much Naruto. Part 16. Oh look, I totally didn't forget about jobs, so I changed all of my characters' jobs to something that's better. I promise I know how to play this game. The boss is another dude. Part 17. Lionel Johnson. Part 18. Empress Durian. Part 19. I am not getting cancelled. And by this time, all the boss fights we've done so far were decently rewarding. Some took more than one attempt, some required cards to be abused, and some even needed some strategic intentional losing. Why? Because sometimes the card damage wasn't enough. So to bring the boss's HP low enough in order to abuse them, I would have to let the boss win. I would then revive and heal, go back, and then activate every spell card like a mono red deck in Magic the Gathering. And this is why I end up using save states after part 3, because in addition to the boss fights, the maps just progressively get larger and larger. For example, would be part 7's full footage being almost 3 hours. However, in order to keep things a little more fair, I would only use save states when I need to take a break or or right before major boss fights. And on top of that, when I was in part 18, it turns out that Agrias is pretty much just an undead dude that transfers his spirits to multiple armor and animate them, which is why before finding Empress Durian, there happens to be a swarm of Agrias coming after you. And once we got to part 19, it is quite obvious that my main unit is pretty much overpowered, as I tend to use them for most of the boss fights and normal fights, so in the end, I just committed to keep using them for most battles, while the other units stand guard and liberate towns and temples. So I pretty much just went all out and used all of my money to purchase healing items as well as jokers to draw my cards so I can choose which ones to keep or throw away. And once I got all my cards, we then proceeded to the boss fight, which happens to be a marathon featuring Agrias for what I hope is the last time. But then he says that we're too late, and that the ceremony to summon Diablo has already begun. And the funny thing is that whenever we beat Agrias, doesn't matter if it's the first, second, or third time, it's almost like he doesn't believe it. Yes, you can lose, you damn skill issue. Your mom's hot though. And after beating Agrias, it then leads to Rashidi coming out. And who's Rashidi? Well, he's one of the 5 heroes who united Zatagenia, and also ended up betraying all of them. And after beating him, Diablo then comes out, which means that we're gonna fight the final boss of this game. And after doing that, the game then pans to the Zenobian castle, and out comes Prince Tristan, who I thought was killed with his father, King Gran. And he then says that the empire we helped build is, wait, what? Worse? What do you mean? So apparently there are multiple endings in this game, and after looking closely, there seem to be areas that I have not gone to yet. So with that being said, I found out that each ending is dictated on the characters we recruited, the opinion leader, and the amount of reputation we have, which we really don't have. And with that, it is then recorded that a year later, we were hunted and executed by Prince Tristan, like how we did to Rashidi and Empress Durian. And just in case you want a summary of each ending and how to get them, then consider checking this video made by Warren Report to find out. Because I was able to understand immediately that I pretty much got one of the worst endings. And with all honesty, this game isn't perfect. Sometimes the game feels too long to the point where it becomes a bit tedious despite having me chosen the runtime, the settings of the game to be at its fastest. And another thing I will add is the fact that you can't really do a quick save. Now, I've never played this game on the original console despite owning a Super Famicom, but imagine having to go to bed because mom told you so, and all you can do is either leave your console on, which can get you in trouble, or just suck it up, turn it off, and do it all over again another time. And yes, I know that my playthrough of this game may be quite loose and there might be some details I'm missing, but overall, despite the flaws of this game, I definitely had fun. And more importantly, this game has definitely made me much more excited to give Tactics over a try, which I'll be covering in the next video, by the way. Other than that, if you enjoy Monster Hunter, then consider checking out my main channel as I cover those games in there. And for those that came from my main channel to watch this video, the reason why I made this channel is because while I do enjoy making the videos I make on the main channel, which in comparison may be higher in energy with the addition of more jokes and skits, sometimes I want to cover more obscure games with a more laid-back commentary. First of all, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then don't forget to like and subscribe for more. And big thanks to my supporters on Twitch and Patreon as they help keep me and help keep the content going. And if you want to be a part of it, they can do so for as low as $1 a month. Links to Twitch, Patreon, Twitter, and more in the description below. And last but not least, hope you all have a wonderful day.